Drummerly.com Unlimited Drama Series.
The words hit me like a slap across the face, delivered with the casual indifference of someone ordering takeout. My ex wants to get coffee and catch up. You're not invited. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing case files from the Millbrook Police Department. My wife Vanessa stood in our kitchen doorway, already dressed in that black sweater that hugged her curves just right, the one she only wore when she wanted to impress someone. At 34, she still turned heads, and she knew it. Coffee, I repeated, setting down my beer. With Derek. That's right. She was applying lipstick using her phone's camera, not even bothering to look at me. We dated for 3 years before I met you, Ethan. We can be adults about this. Adults? Right. Because adults typically got dolled up for casual coffee with their exes while their husbands sat at home like obedient lapdogs. Understood, I said, keeping my voice level. 20 years as a cop in this sleepy Maine town had taught me to read people, and every alarm bell in my head was screaming. But I'd learned something else in those 20 years. Sometimes you had to let people hang themselves with their own rope. She grabbed her purse and keys, pausing at the door. Don't wait up. We might grab dinner too. You know how Derek likes to talk. Oh, I knew exactly how Derek liked to talk. Derek Morrison, her college boyfriend, who'd moved back to Millbrook 6 months ago with his trust fund and his Tesla and his CrossFit gym downtown. The same Derek who'd been liking every single one of Vanessa's Instagram posts and commenting with fire emojis, like some teenage boy. Have fun, I said. She left without another word, and I sat there in our restored Victorian house, the house I'd spent 3 years renovating with my own hands, while she complained about the dust and noise. The house she'd been calling our project to her friends while I did all the actual work. I finished my beer, then walked upstairs to our bedroom and pulled out my old army duffel bag. If Vanessa wanted to play games, she was about to learn that I'd been playing them a lot longer than she had. By the time she came home at midnight, reeking of expensive cologne that definitely wasn't hers, I was sitting in my recliner with a cup of coffee and a folder in my lap. How was coffee? I asked. She froze in the doorway, taking in the duffel bag by my feet and the papers scattered on the coffee table. Good. Why are you... What's all this? We're done, Vanessa. The words hung in the air like smoke. She blinked, opened her mouth, closed it again. For once in our 8-year marriage, my wife was speechless. Ethan, what are you talking about? It was just coffee. Cut the shit. I stood up and she actually took a step back. I'm not a big man, 5'10", 170 soaking wet, but something in my voice must have told her I was serious. You want to know what's in this folder? Bank statements showing you've been moving money to a separate account for 6 months, credit card bills for hotels I've never been to, and my personal favorite, text messages between you and Derek that I'm pretty sure weren't about coffee. Her face went white, then red, then white again. You went through my phone? I didn't have to. You left your laptop open last week with your messages synced. Did you know Derek screenshots everything you send him, including the photos? I tapped the folder, especially the photos. She lunged for the papers, but I was faster. 20 years of dealing with drunk college kids and domestic disputes had kept me in decent shape. Those are private. Not anymore, they're not. See, here's what's going to happen. I've already filed for divorce. No fault, quick and clean. You get to keep your car and your clothes and whatever's left in your personal account after you moved half our savings into it. You can't just... I can and I did. Oh, and Vanessa, I changed the locks an hour ago. Your key won't work anymore. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. Check the deed. My name only, remember? You insisted we keep our assets separate when we got married because you were so independent. I smiled, and it felt like broken glass. Turns out, that was great advice. She started crying then. Big, dramatic sobs that might have worked on me a year ago. Hell, they might have worked on me a week ago. But sitting in that cafe parking lot for 2 hours, watching her make out with Derek Morrison in his Tesla, had burned something out of me that wasn't coming back. I have nowhere to go, she whispered. Sure you do. Derek's got that nice apartment above his gym. I'm sure he'd love to have you. Ethan, please. We can work this out. It was a mistake. The only mistake was mine, and I'm fixing it now. I picked up her purse and car keys from the counter where she'd dropped them. I'll make this real simple. You've got 30 minutes to pack whatever you can carry. After that, I'm calling the police to have you removed for trespassing. You are the police. Not tonight, I'm not. Tonight, I'm just a guy whose wife cheated on him and lied about it. I held up her keys. These stay with me. Consider it collateral for the money you stole. She spent the next 29 minutes throwing clothes into garbage bags and screaming at me about what a controlling bastard I was, and how she'd never loved me anyway, and how Derek was twice the man I'd ever be. I sat in my chair and drank my coffee and watched her destroy what was left of our marriage with her own mouth. When she was done, she stood in the doorway with her bags and her mascara running down her cheeks like black tears. I'll get a lawyer, she said. I'll take you for everything you've got. Good luck with that. But just so we're clear, if you try to come back here, if you try to take anything else that belongs to me, if you so much as drive past this house, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of woman you really are, starting with the school board that employs you. She left without another word, dragging her garbage bags behind her like the trash she'd turned out to be. I locked the door behind her and poured myself another cup of coffee. Outside, I could hear her pounding on Derek's door 3 houses down, her voice carrying in the cold October air. For the first time in months, I smiled. The next morning brought the kind of gray, drizzling weather that made Millbrook look like a Stephen King novel. I sat at my desk in the police station, nursing my 3rd cup of coffee and trying to focus on paperwork, while my phone buzzed with increasingly desperate texts from Vanessa. We need to talk. This is crazy, Ethan. You're being ridiculous. Derek says I can stay with him, but this isn't over. Answer your phone. I deleted each message without reading the rest. Mike Chen, my partner for the past 5 years, kept shooting me curious looks from his desk across the room. You look like hell, he finally said around noon. Rough night? You could say that. I rubbed my eyes. I'd gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep, but it was the best sleep I'd had in months. Vanessa and I are getting divorced. Mike nearly choked on his sandwich. Jesus, Ethan, what happened? She's been screwing Derek Morrison. The gym guy? Seriously? Mike shook his head. Man, I'm sorry. That sucks. It is what it is. I pulled up the incident reports on my computer, trying to look busy. I kicked her out last night. Where's she staying? With Derek, I assume. Or maybe she'll call her sister in Portland. Not my problem anymore. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. In a town like Millbrook, population 8,000, nothing stayed private for long. By tomorrow, everyone would know my business. The thought of being the subject of gossip and pity made my stomach turn. That afternoon, I drove past Derek's gym on my way to grab lunch. His Tesla was parked out front, along with Vanessa's Honda Civic. I pulled into the diner across the street and ordered a burger I didn't want, positioning myself at a window booth where I could watch the gym entrance. 20 minutes later, they emerged together. Derek had his arm around Vanessa's waist, and she was laughing at something he'd said. She looked happy, happier than I'd seen her in years. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. They got into his car and drove off toward the nicer part of town, where Derek had his apartment. I sat there for another hour, drinking coffee and thinking about the last 8 years of my life. When had it gone wrong? When had I become the kind of husband whose wife had to look elsewhere for excitement? When had I become so boring, so predictable, that cheating seemed like a reasonable option? The answer came to me as I watched the rain streak down the diner window. I hadn't changed at all. I was the same guy Vanessa had married, steady, reliable, maybe a little too serious, but fundamentally decent. She was the one who'd changed, who'd decided that decent wasn't enough anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Derek. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back, "No, we don't. Look, I know this is awkward, but Vanessa is really upset. Maybe we can work something out like adults. Adults don't sleep with other men's wives. It's not like that. We have history, real feelings." I almost laughed. Real feelings. Like that made it better somehow. Stay away from me, Derek, and keep Vanessa away from my house. Or what? I looked up from my phone and saw Derek's Tesla pulling into the gym parking lot. He was alone this time, and he was looking right at me through the diner window. Even from across the street, I could see the smirk on his face. Or you'll find out, I typed back. That evening, I drove home to my empty house and tried to figure out what came next. The divorce would be straightforward enough. Maine was a no-fault state, and we didn't have kids or complicated assets to fight over. But I knew Vanessa wouldn't make it easy. She'd want to punish me for embarrassing her, for taking control of the situation, instead of playing the victim like she'd probably expected. I was heating up leftover pizza when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I saw Melanie Foster, Vanessa's best friend and partner in crime for the past 3 years. Melanie was one of those women who called themselves life coaches, but really just gossiped professionally and sold essential oils on Facebook. "Hi, Ethan," she said when I opened the door. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About Vanessa. She's at my house right now, crying her eyes out. She says you threw her out with nothing but the clothes on her back." I leaned against the doorframe. "Is that what she told you?" "She says you went crazy, accused her of cheating, and kicked her out without any proof." "Interesting story. What else did she say?" Melanie shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I know you two have been having problems." "We weren't having problems, Melanie. I was having problems. Vanessa was having Derek Morrison." Her face flushed. "That's not—" She said they're just friends. Friends who take naked pictures together. The color drained from her face. "Ethan, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to Vanessa and tell her that her sob story isn't going to work. I have evidence of her affair. I have evidence of her stealing money from our joint account. And if she wants to make this ugly, I'm happy to oblige. You can't prove—" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots I'd taken of Vanessa's messages. Melanie's eyes widened as she read Derek's response to a particularly explicit photo. "Jesus," she whispered. "Tell her to sign the divorce papers and disappear quietly, and I'll keep this between us. Tell her to fight me, and I'll make sure everyone in town sees exactly what kind of woman she really is." Melanie nodded quickly and hurried back to her car. I watched her drive away, then went back inside and poured myself a beer. My phone rang an hour later. Vanessa's number. "You bastard," she hissed when I answered. "How dare you show those messages to Melanie?" "How dare I? You're kidding, right? Those were private." "So was our marriage. But that didn't stop you from sharing it with Derek. I want my car keys back. And I want a wife who doesn't sleep around. Looks like we're both going to be disappointed." She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, calculating instead of angry. "You know what, Ethan? Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. I've been talking to a lawyer, and he says I'm entitled to half of everything, including the house." "Your lawyer's an idiot." "We'll see about that." "Oh, and Derek wants to meet you tomorrow night. Man to man. He thinks you two should clear the air. Derek can go to hell. 7 o'clock at Murphy's bar. Don't be a coward, Ethan." She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone, feeling something cold and sharp settling in my chest. They wanted to meet? Fine. I'd meet them. But they weren't going to like what I had to say. Murphy's bar sat on the outskirts of Millbrook, like a relic from another era, all weathered wood and neon beer signs that had been flickering since the Carter administration. It was the kind of place where locals went to drink away their problems and mind their own business, which made it perfect for the conversation I was about to have. I arrived at 7 sharp and found Derek already there, sitting in a corner booth with a beer and an attitude. He'd dressed for the occasion in a tight black t-shirt that showed off his gym muscles and designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Everything about him screamed money and arrogance. "Ethan." He stood up when he saw me, extending his hand like we were old friends meeting for drinks. "Thanks for coming." I ignored the handshake and slid into the booth across from him. "Let's get this over with." Derek sat back down, his smile faltering slightly. Look, I know this situation is awkward for everyone involved. Awkward? I signaled the bartender for a beer. That's an interesting word for it. What would you call it? I'd call it adultery. But maybe they use different words at your fancy gym. His jaw tightened. There's no need to be hostile. Hostile? Derek, you've been screwing my wife for God knows how long, and now you want to sit here and tell me there's no need to be hostile? The bartender brought my beer, glancing nervously between us before retreating to the safety of the bar. The place was nearly empty. Just a few regulars playing pool in the back, and an old-timer nursing a whiskey at the counter. Vanessa and I have history, Derek said carefully. We dated in college. I know all about your history. What I want to know is when you decided to make it current events. He took a long pull from his beer, studying me over the bottle. You really want to know? Enlighten me. She came into the gym about 4 months ago. Said she wanted to get back in shape, maybe try some personal training sessions. He smiled, and it was like looking at a shark. We
Intimate text intro another weather than me.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
started talking, reminiscing about old times. One thing led to another. One thing led to another, I repeated. Just like that? Just like that. Look, Ethan, I'm not going to apologize for falling in love with someone who was already unhappy in her marriage. Unhappy? The word tasted bitter in my mouth. She tell you she was unhappy? She didn't have to tell me. I could see it. The way she talked about you, about your life together, or lack thereof. When's the last time you took her anywhere? When's the last time you did something spontaneous, something exciting? I felt heat rising in my chest. So, this is my fault? I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I'm saying people grow apart. It happens. People grow apart, so they cheat. That's your philosophy? Derek leaned forward, his voice dropping. She was going to leave you anyway, Ethan. I just gave her a reason to do it sooner rather than later. How thoughtful of you. Look, I didn't come here to fight with you. I came here because Vanessa asked me to. She feels bad about how things went down, and she wants to work out some kind of arrangement. What kind of arrangement? She wants her car keys back, and she wants to be able to get the rest of her things from the house without you being there. I laughed, and the sound was harsh in the quiet bar. That's what she wants? That's what any reasonable person would want. And what do I get out of this arrangement? Derek shrugged. You get to keep your dignity. No messy divorce, no public embarrassment. She signs whatever papers you want, and you both move on with your lives. Generous of her. It's the mature thing to do. I finished my beer and set the bottle down carefully on the table. You know what, Derek? You're right. This is awkward for everyone involved. So let me make it less awkward. He leaned back, sensing something in my tone. Here's my counteroffer, I continued. You and Vanessa can go to hell. She gets nothing from me except divorce papers and a restraining order if she comes near my house again. And you, I pointed at him across the table, you get to explain to your gym members why their personal trainer likes to break up marriages in his spare time. Derek's face darkened. You threatening me? I'm promising you, this town is smaller than you think, and people talk. By tomorrow morning, everyone's going to know exactly what kind of man you are. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and showed him the same screenshot I'd shown Melanie. His face went white as he recognized Vanessa's naked selfie and his own response. Technology's amazing, isn't it? I said. The things people put in writing these days. You son of a bitch. I'm the son of a bitch? You're the one sleeping with married women and taking pictures. Derek started to stand up, his fists clenched. You better watch yourself, Ethan. Or what? You'll beat me up? In front of witnesses? I gestured toward the bartender, who was watching us nervously. Go ahead, tough guy. Assault a police officer. See how that works out for you. He sat back down, but his whole body was tense with barely controlled anger. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay away from me, and you're going to tell Vanessa to stay away from me. If either of you contacts me again, if either of you comes near my house, if either of you so much as looks at me funny, I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what you've been doing. People won't care. People will care plenty. This is Millbrook, Derek. Half your gym members go to church with me on Sundays. The other half went to high school with me. You think they're going to keep paying you money after they find out you're a home wrecker? I stood up and threw a $10 bill on the table. Enjoy your beer, and enjoy Vanessa. You two deserve each other. I was halfway to the door when Derek called out behind me. She never loved you, you know. She told me so. I stopped and turned around. The few other customers in the bar were staring now, sensing the tension. Maybe not, I said. But at least I never had to steal someone else's wife to get laid. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek's face was red with embarrassment and rage, and I could see his hands shaking as he gripped his beer bottle. I walked out into the cold October night feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my truck. Vanessa calling, probably getting a play-by-play from Derek. I let it go to voicemail. The message was exactly what I'd expected. Screaming, threats, accusations, and promises of legal warfare. She was going to take me for everything I had. She was going to ruin my reputation. She was going to make sure everyone knew what a controlling, abusive husband I'd been. I deleted the message and drove home to my quiet house. Let her try. The next morning brought consequences, as I'd known it would. I was barely through the door at the police station when Chief Morrison, no relation to Derek, thankfully, called me into his office. Sit down, Kells. Chief Morrison was a good man, fair but no nonsense, with 30 years on the force and the scars to prove it. I hear you had some excitement at Murphy's last night. News travels fast. It does when one of my officers threatens a civilian in a public place. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Want to tell me your side? I gave him the condensed version. The affair, the divorce, Derek's attempt at negotiation, and my response. Morrison listened without interrupting, his face giving nothing away. You show him any evidence of this affair? Screenshots of text messages between him and my wife? How'd you obtain those messages? Vanessa left her laptop open with her messages synced. I took photos of the screen. Morrison nodded slowly. Legally obtained, then. No privacy violations. That's right. And you didn't threaten him with violence? I threatened to make the affair public knowledge. That's not illegal. No, it's not. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Look, Ethan, I'm sorry about your marriage. That's a hell of a thing to go through. But I need to know you're not going to let this affect your work. It won't. And I need to know you're not going to do anything stupid. This town doesn't need that kind of drama. Understood, Chief. He studied me for another long moment, then nodded. All right, get back to work. And Ethan, if this escalates, if there are any more public confrontations, you come to me first. Don't handle it yourself. Yes, sir. I spent the rest of the morning trying to focus on paperwork, but my mind kept wandering. Around noon, Mike appeared at my desk with 2 cups of coffee and a concerned expression. Heard about last night, he said, sitting down across from me. From who? Tommy Murphy. He was tending bar. Mike handed me one of the coffees. Says Derek Morrison looked like he wanted to kill you. Derek Morrison can want whatever he likes. This is serious, Ethan. Guy like that with his money and connections, he could make trouble for you. I looked up from my computer screen. What kind of trouble? The kind where he files a complaint about police harassment. The kind where he claims you abused your position to intimidate him. I was off duty, and I didn't intimidate anyone. I just told him the truth. Your truth. His truth might be different. Mike was right, and I knew it. I'd been a cop long enough to know how these things worked. Rich guy versus working class cop. Guess who the system would believe? I'll be careful, I said. Good. Because there's something else. Mike glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Carla heard some interesting gossip this morning. Carla Rodriguez was our desk sergeant, a 40-something single mother who knew everything that happened in Millbrook before it actually happened. If Carla had gossip, it was worth listening to. What kind of gossip? The kind where your wife's been telling people you're abusive, that you threw her out of the house with nothing, took her car keys, threatened to ruin her reputation if she didn't sign divorce papers. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She's lying. I know that. You know that. But other people don't know that. And in a town this size, reputation is everything. He was right again. In Millbrook, your reputation was your currency. Lose that, and you lost everything else. Who's she been talking to? Melanie Foster, for one. That whole crowd, the yoga moms, the book club ladies, the PTA gossips, they're all very concerned about poor Vanessa and what she's been through. Son of a bitch. It gets worse. Apparently, she's been staying with different friends each night, telling them all how scared she is to go home, how you've been controlling and emotionally abusive for years. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. This is insane. I never laid a hand on her. I never even raised my voice until the night I kicked her out. I believe you. But belief and proof are two different things. I have proof. The text messages, the bank records. Proof that she cheated and stole money. Not proof that you weren't abusive. And frankly, the cheating thing might actually work in her favor. Woman trapped in an abusive marriage finds comfort in the arms of another man. It's a story people want to believe. I stared at my computer screen, watching the cursor blink. What do you think I should do? Honestly, I think you should let your lawyer handle it. Don't engage with her. Don't respond to the rumors. Don't give her any more ammunition. And just let her destroy my reputation? Better than letting her destroy your career. That afternoon, I drove home through downtown Millbrook and felt the weight of a dozen stares following me. At the grocery store, conversation stopped when I walked by. At the gas station, the clerk avoided eye contact. By the time I reached my house, I was ready to punch something. Instead, I called my lawyer. Tom Bradley had been handling legal matters for cops in Millbrook for 20 years. He was expensive but thorough, and he didn't judge his clients for the messes they found themselves in. Ethan, he said when he answered the phone, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. You heard about the situation? Hard not to. Your wife called me this morning, wanting to know if I'd represent her in the divorce. What did you tell her? I told her I already represent you and that she should find her own lawyer, which she apparently has. Who? Jennifer Walsh from Portland. She's good, expensive, but good. And she specializes in cases involving domestic abuse. There was no domestic abuse. I know that, but proving it might be harder than you think. Your wife's been building a narrative, Ethan. Scared woman, controlling husband, years of emotional manipulation. It's a compelling story. It's bullshit. Bullshit that sounds believable. Look, I need you to do something for me. I need you to write down everything that happened between you and Vanessa over the past 6 months. Every argument, every conversation, every interaction. Dates, times, witnesses if there were any, everything. Why? Because if this goes to court, her lawyer's going to paint you as an abuser who threw his wife out in a jealous rage. We need to be able to prove that you had legitimate reasons for your actions and that you followed proper legal procedures. I spent the rest of the evening writing down everything I could remember, and by the time I was finished, I had 12 pages of notes. Reading through them, I realized how naive I'd been. While I'd been focused on the affair and the money, Vanessa had been playing a much longer game. The next morning brought more bad news. Chief Morrison called me into his office again, this time with a formal complaint in his hands. Derek Morrison filed this yesterday, he said, sliding the papers across his desk. Claims you threatened him at Murphy's bar, showed him private photographs without consent, and used your position as a police officer to intimidate him. I read through the complaint, feeling my blood pressure rise with every line. According to Derek, I'd cornered him at the bar, shown him explicit photos of his girlfriend, and threatened to ruin his business if he didn't stay away from her. This is twisted, I said. He's making it sound like I'm some kind of stalker. Are you? I looked up sharply. Chief, it's a fair question, Ethan. Your wife leaves you for another man, and suddenly you're confronting him in bars and threatening his livelihood. How's that look from the outside? It looks like a man defending himself. Or it looks like a man who can't let go. Morrison took the complaint back. I'm going to investigate this properly, which means I'm putting you on administrative leave until it's resolved. You're suspending me? I'm protecting you. And I'm protecting this department. If this goes public, if Morrison takes it to the media or the state police, I need to be able to show that we took it seriously. I felt the walls closing in around me. How long? However long it takes. Could be a week, could be a month. It depends on what the investigation turns up. I cleaned out my desk in silence while my colleagues watched from across the room. Mike tried to say something encouraging, but I was too angry to listen. By noon, I was sitting in my empty house with nowhere to go and nothing to do except think about how thoroughly my life had been destroyed in the space of 4 days. My phone rang around dinner time. Unknown number. Ethan, it's Jennifer Walsh. I'm representing your wife in the divorce proceedings. I have a lawyer. I know, Tom Bradley's a good man. Look, I'm calling because I think we can resolve this quickly and amicably if we're all reasonable about it. What does Vanessa want? Half the house, half your pension, spousal support for 3 years, and her car back. I almost laughed. And what do I get? You get to avoid a messy trial where some very unflattering details about your marriage come to light. What kind of details? The kind where my client testifies about years of emotional abuse, financial control, and threats of violence. The kind where she has witnesses who can corroborate her story. She's lying. Maybe, but she's very convincing. And she has friends who are willing to testify about things they observed over the years. I thought about Melanie Foster and the rest of Vanessa's circle, women who'd been in my house dozens of times, who'd smiled at me and accepted my hospitality, while apparently taking notes on my behavior. I'll talk to my lawyer, I said. You should. And Ethan? You should also know that my client is considering filing for a restraining order. She's very frightened of what you might do next. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in my kitchen, surrounded by the silence of my empty house, and realized that I'd been outplayed at every turn. But the game wasn't over yet.